Hello and welcome once again to Side Hustle Ideas. I am Bill, the company's expert, and this is the live stream that I do once a week where we talk about entrepreneurship and business in a larger sense. So if you are someone who is curious about entrepreneurship, you're thinking maybe I could end up working for myself one day, or I'm interested in starting my own business, maybe on the side or as a full-blown thing, you've come to the right place. This is interactive, so if you are seeing my beautiful face right now, you should see a chat box somewhere in the vicinity of my face, depending on what device you're watching this on. If you are a subscriber to my channel, get in the chat and let me know what's up with you, what you're struggling with, what you're wondering about, and I will do my best to help you out. The title of this is episode 107, nice round number of Side Hustle Ideas. I think it's a prime number, 107. What is the entrepreneur mindset, and do you have it? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be kicking things off. I've got a bit of a spiel about that. So if you are interested in that, stick around. And as always, special shout out goes out to my YouTube channel members. Snap. Membership has the privileges. You guys are awesome. Also to my Patreons and to my super thanks donors. Those are always nice to get. And to you, my viewers and participants, you are awesome. Okay, without any further ado, let's jump right into this. Good God, man. There's nothing you can say at work that can't be prefaced by saying, good God, man. That should have been the title of today's stream. You guys would have tuned in, right, to talk about that. Anyway, here we go. So what is the entrepreneur mindset? This is kind of a cliche. This is something that everybody talks about. It's like, for whatever reason, people are obsessed about talking about this. And so what I did to start this off is I went to ChatGPT, right? Everybody's favorite YouTube guru, ChatGPT, and I typed in, what is the entrepreneur mindset and how do I know if I have it? Just to see what the hell it said. So I'm going to present you what it told me, and then we're going to take it apart, and then I'm going to give you what I think is actually the entrepreneur mindset based on my history of leading companies and working with startup founders and small businesses and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so here we go. Let's see if I can do this here. Okay, so just to kick us off. So this is ChatGPT. This is me asking, what is the entrepreneur mindset? This is what it said. Okay, I'm not going to read this verbatim, but the entrepreneur mindset isn't just wanting to start a business. It's all these other things. Ownership mentality. You instinctively take responsibility. I take responsibility. That kind of thing. Bias towards action. Okay, so instead of talking forever, like me, you take action. You're a man of action or a woman of action or a thing of action. You know, we've got to be respectful. Tolerance for uncertainty. Okay, whatever the hell that means. Opportunity orientation. You naturally see inefficiencies, gaps, or unmet needs and think there's a way to make this better. Okay, now these aren't like technically wrong. It's just that I don't like expressing it like this. Value creation focus, the idea of creating something useful. Yes, absolutely. We're going to get into that later. Resilience. Okay, setbacks frustrate you, but you recover fast. You have a desire to grow, to get better at what you do, scale it up. And autonomy motivation. You want to be in control of your time and direction. Not out of arrogance, but because independence feels natural. Okay, so that's the starting point. This is what like a lot of people talk about, and this is the kind of crap that they say, right? How can you tell that you have it? Ask yourself. Okay, this is like a moment of self-reflection here. When you see a problem, do you feel an itch to design a better way rather than just complain? Or if you just feel an itch in general, anywhere on your person, that would qualify too. Do you get bored following routines that you didn't create yourself? Okay, that's a good thing, right? The implication being is that, if you're just following what someone else told you to do, you're not satisfied with that. You want to be in charge. That's the idea. When you imagine your future, does working for someone else forever feel emotionally off? I would argue that if it doesn't feel emotionally off, there's something wrong with you. Being told what to do your entire life, I think, is not a great prospect for, I think, anybody. Do you find yourself studying systems like marketing, product design, audience building, even when no one asked you to? Okay, like you're curious about business stuff. That's obviously a good thing. And have you ever caught yourself thinking, if they just let me run it, I could make this thing work better? Yeah. I got news for you though. Everybody feels that way. Every single person, no matter how incompetent they are at their job, they always think they can do better. That's a normal human condition if you're working, and you see a little piece of a puzzle in a workplace. You're one cog of a big machine and you see your little area, right? You always think, this is dumb. The people in charge are idiots. I could do better, right? Now, I'm not saying that that's always wrong, but what I'm saying is that everybody feels like that. And sometimes the reasons why it's done that way are hidden from you. You don't see why they do it that way. Anyway, that's beside the point. Okay, so this is what a lot of people say when they talk about the entrepreneurial mindset. It's a bit of a cliche, in my opinion. Got to adjust my camera. You guys need to be able to see my hair. It's very important. As long as I have the best hair on YouTube, then we're good. That's kind of a requirement. That's what I like to try and bring to the world. Okay, so this is the stuff that, people will say. It's a cliche. You've probably heard all this stuff before. Let's talk about what I think the answer actually is. You guys can tell me if you agree. Okay, where's my notes? I tried to jot down some stuff earlier, so let's see if I can present that. How do I make this bigger here? Okay, there we go. Okay, something like this. No, here we go. There. That sort of fits. Yeah, that fits perfectly. Do not be distracted by the ancient version of Microsoft Office I'm using. I think everything I use is no longer supported. I insist upon it. Okay, so here's some principles in no particular order. Hopefully you can read this. The entrepreneur mindset is a habit of perceiving and creating value that others desire and are willing to exchange for, combined with a bias towards acting on those opportunities. Okay, so what I'm saying here is that if you are an entrepreneur, if you think like an entrepreneur, you're thinking in terms of value, okay? What is value? It's something that other people want or they need. And the thing that those two things have in common is that they're wanting to pay for it. They need it. They want it. They must have it, okay? So they're willing to exchange money for that thing because it's important to them, right? Now, if you can create that thing, whatever it is, that's value, right? So for example, let's say you have the ability to paint a house or you have the ability to drive a car, like be an Uber driver or something. That's something other people need, right? People, they have a need for a taxi. They have a need for, driving a truck. They have a need for like an Uber thing. You'll have to excuse me. I'm under the weather too today, so I'm about to burst into a violent cough. If my head explodes live on this stream, maybe it'll go viral. I don't know. Anyway, so it's the idea of value. And as somebody with an entrepreneur mindset, you're constantly thinking about this. What is of use to people? What can I do or that I can make that other people would pay for because they want it or they need it, right? This can go all the way from like the mundane stuff at the bottom, like manual labor. You can dig ditches, you can stack boxes. That's of value to people. There are people out there right now that are paying other people to do that, okay? All the way to like on the other extreme, being an inventor of some kind, coming up with a new technology that changes the world, right? And then you make $1 trillion overnight and you lived happily ever after, or you didn't, depending on, different details. So, right, it's the idea of value. Now, most people don't tune into this kind of thing, okay? But as an entrepreneur, if you think in this terms, like, what can I do? And then it's not just about yourself. It's not self-reflection. It's like you look out into the world and you see other people paying for something, other people obsessing over something, some thing that they need now, because what people think of and what people are obsessed about, that's what they generally want to pay for, right? Okay, so you're obsessed with value. That's the idea. Let's go back to this. Here we go. Okay, so this is a fancy way of saying that. Okay, a habit of perceiving and creating value that others decide and are willing to exchange for. They're willing to pay money for, combined with a bias towards acting on those opportunities. Okay, this live stream is called Side Hustle Ideas, right? You can see the little doohickey right there. Side hustles. Side hustle being an entrepreneurial venture that you do on the side. So that means that you work at a day job, you don't take major financial risks. You don't sort of leave your day job to go and try something that's untried, that's very risky. You do it on the side, right? And you validate it, you test it to see if it's going to go anywhere. And if it starts going somewhere, then you can decide what to do. Should you scale it up, or should you sort of just, not persist with it, right? That's the idea. Okay, so we're talking about value. Let's move on to this thing, okay? Entrepreneur mindset there's three things here that all need an explanation. Self-knowledge of value, we sort of talked about that, the idea of what can you do that other people would want or need, right? The key to being successful is understanding this, okay? Times the empathy for others' needs. This is not just being a total introvert and just going into yourself and thinking about this. It's about looking out in the world. What are people paying for? What are people wanting? What are people talking about? What are people needing? Observe, go and find out, what do people pay for? Because that's a major part of this. To be an entrepreneur, it's not just about what you do yourself. It's about customers. It's about connecting to people who would pay, right? So being able to look out into the world and see what's useful. You may want to do something. It might be your hobby, right? Unfortunately, though, if nobody's really lining up around the block to pay for that thing, it makes it very challenging to do it as a successful entrepreneurial venture. That's the painful reality, how this stuff goes, right? But if there's something that you do and you're into, but yet other people are really into it too, they want it, they need it, they're paying for it, then that maybe has potential. Okay. Whoops, I did something here. Okay, here we go. So self-knowledge of value times the empathy for others' needs, okay, times creativity in designing the exchange. So what this is the idea that, you know how to turn that into money. You see everybody wanting a certain thing. You realize that you are capable of delivering that thing. Great. Okay, now you've got to find a way to monetize your delivery of that thing. Does that make sense? So you've got to understand business. How can I get people to pay for this? Let's say you are a painter, okay? And you do paintings. And you've noticed that, when you do paintings and people see it, they feel something profound and they feel really good. And when they see your paintings, they go, whoa, that's good, Now, that's what you notice. People like that, okay? So great. You've observed what people like. You've seen something that you can create or deliver some value that they like, they want, they need. They may not need it, but they would want it, okay? Now, how do you turn that into money? Well, you could sell your paintings. That's one way. You could have an art gallery exhibition where you charge people money to get in, they see your paintings, okay? You do paintings on demand for people that need certain applications. They need art in certain areas, like murals, whatever. Then it comes the problem of okay, I know people like this. How do I convince them that they're going to like it so I can sell it to them, right? That's the whole delivery mechanism. That's the business side of things, okay? So what I'm saying here is that the entrepreneurial mindset is having those three things. Self-knowledge of value, what you can do, what you can deliver. empathy for others' needs, seeing what people want and need, and that's in demand, and then being able to monetize this whole thing that you do, right? You combine those three things, you're in business. Okay, that's what I mean here. Greetings to people from Colombia. Hello from the Philippines. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being here. I will get to questions in a little bit. We're just going to finish this first here. Okay. Third thing, entrepreneurial mindset, awareness of your existing capabilities, even if ordinary ones, and can generate value if deployed intelligently in response to demand. What this means is that, listen, some people think that in order to be in business for yourself, you have to be some kind of inventor, doing something radically original that no one has ever thought of before and no one's ever been able to do before. No. There's certainly a place for that. Okay, we have things like tech startups and things like this, that sort of cover that area. But the vast majority of people starting small business are doing things that are quite commonplace. Actually, they're starting plumbing companies. They're starting a service that paints houses, like I said earlier. This is not something original that only you can do and nobody else can do, right? It is something you can deliver, but it's not like you're the only one in the world that can deliver that thing, right? Now, the reality for plumbing and for painting is that, there are already people providing that, but the demand for those things is so far and like widespread, right? That they need that everywhere, in every city, in every part of every city, in every region, So there's also, some differentiation in there. There's a company that will give you a very basic paint job. They'll paint your house. They'll do houses in bulk, good bang for the buck, right? It's not very sophisticated, but it's very efficient, and they'll take care of you, right? Maybe you're not looking for that. Maybe you're looking for more high-end paint. Maybe you're some kind of fancy millionaire or billionaire. You need someone to paint your fourth home, and you don't just want Joe, college student painting your $1 million mansion. You want something really high-end, using the best paint, something that'll really pop, something that, you don't often see. You're not going to get Joe Painting Company for that. You're going to get some high-end painting service, right? So there's a demand for more upscale, more technologically sophisticated painting company, right? So what I'm saying is that, there's many things in mundane options like that, like painting, okay? There's a lot of demand for it. So even if, you can only do something like painting, like other people can do too, that's no excuse. You could still be an entrepreneur. You could still go start a small business very successfully, doing something that's been done before, and it's almost formulaic. Okay? So that's what I'm trying to say. You don't have to get into inventor mindset to think of what you can do to be an entrepreneur. A lot of business is done in very mundane things. Okay? The difference, of course, is that you're making money. The more you do of this mundane thing, the more you build your fortune, and it's a very exciting thing for you. It's not mundane to do. Okay, so that was this one. Next one here, entrepreneurial mindset, is a conviction that if value can be created and exchanged, one can act directly without waiting for institutional permission. This is a very fancy way of saying you don't need to go through gatekeepers. For example, you want to paint houses, that's something you can do. What a lot of people will do is they'll think, okay, I need to get a job as a house painter. Let's look at the job listings. Let's see who's looking to employ me as a house painter, right? That company is like a gatekeeper. I can't do house painting unless I go through them, right? They have to employ me as a house painter, and then I can paint houses, right? So they're the gatekeeper, right? What I'm saying here is that entrepreneurship is about realizing that there are no gatekeepers. If you want to paint houses, you can go ahead and paint houses. You can offer your services directly to the customers. You could say, I'm not working for some company. I am my own company. You want your house painted? I'll put up an ad. Here, I offer house painting, whatever. Somebody calls me, they say, I need my house painted. You say, sure, yeah, it costs this much. I can do it this day. Is that cool? They say, sure, okay. So, and this is how we handle the fee structure and all that kind of stuff. And you can just go ahead and do it. You don't need anyone's permission to go ahead and paint houses if that's something you want to do. This is how entrepreneurs think. Okay? You can do a hell of a lot of stuff directly. Okay? Yes, there are some restrictions. You can't go into jet engine design maybe in your garage. But you can go into consulting on jet engine design on your own. You know what I mean? Like if you apply some intelligence, there are no real gatekeepers. You can go ahead and do what you want to do and deliver value without anyone's permission. That's kind of part of this. I can't tell you how many people I've encountered that they don't get this. It's a real shame. They're very bright and they're very capable and they have a lot to contribute, but they just can't get out of this mentality that they need some kind of permission or validation to go ahead with it. Whoops. Let's see. How does that work? Here we go. Okay. Entrepreneurial mindset, an internally driven orientation to act on one's own judgment, even if it conflicts with prevailing norms and external caution. What this means is that you have to have a little bit of a rebellious attitude, okay? Some people are absolutely afraid of doing anything that goes against the herd, right? Like everybody's doing this, so they figure I must do that. I can't just go some other direction because I'm very uncomfortable with that. I always second guess myself. I think if everybody else is doing this, then maybe there's a reason I'm not realizing why they're doing that. I should do it too, just to be safe, right? In order to go your own path, in order to start your own business and do your own thing, by definition, you have to go against the grain. Nobody else is going to be doing that exact same thing. You have to get used to the idea that, like, okay, I'm going to kind of be a bit rebellious. I'm not going to do what everybody else is doing. When you start and you tell your friends and family what you're doing, a lot of times they're not going to understand. They're going to dissuade you or try to dissuade you. They'll say, oh, it sounds risky, and basically they're advising you through their lens. Oh, I wouldn't do that, Now, if you're the type of person that you pay attention to that, you can't ignore that. You're like, yeah, you're right. Nobody else is doing that. That's true. I guess the right thing to do is to give up before I even start, right? Like you'll never be able to pull this off, right? So you have to have a certain element of rebelliousness and the ability to go against the herd, and you're okay with that. You're confident enough in yourself to do that occasionally. That's part of this. Okay. We're getting down to the end of this, just a couple more. So here's one. Entrepreneurial mindset and an orientation toward value creation supported by a working understanding of the fundamental disciplines of business. It's very hard to go into business for yourself when you don't understand anything about business. Okay, there are different areas of business, right? Like it says here, accounting, finance, marketing, operations, economics, management. I mean, there's other things too. There's IT, there's HR, there's project management, there's all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? So at least understanding the basics of things like accounting or things like marketing or things like sales, like it's pretty important, I'm not saying you necessarily have to have certain educational qualifications. You don't necessarily have to go out and get an MBA or, whatever, go to business school, but you need to know these principles one way or another. Some people are self-taught. Some people just pick up books and they read and they get the basics. Other people go to school. They take degrees in this stuff, but one way or another, you need to know these principles. Okay. It's not super hard. All I can say is that for me personally, like I got an engineering degree, and then 10 years later, whatever, I got an MBA. The MBA was child's play compared to engineering. Like, you don't need to be an absolute genius to learn these principles. They're not that hard, but you do need to know them. Okay. Things like accounting. You do need to know this stuff. And then finally, we come down right to the end here. In business, 3 foundational pillars are operations, marketing, and finance. So to further refine the last point, you need to know, like, have a fundamental understanding of business. In my experience, business is, there's 3 kind of super important areas that you can't ignore. Operations, marketing, and finance. Okay, so operations is delivering the thing you do. So if you're painting a house, this is the painting part. This is to do with ordering paints and, scheduling painters and, maintaining vehicles to drive you to the customer's site, that kind of thing. That's operations. The tools you use to paint, right? All of that is operations. That's the painting part. Marketing, that's the sales part. That's selling your painting services to people who are looking for painting services. That's marketing. How to find where those people are, what to say to them to get them to hire you and do business with you. All of that's marketing. And then finance is the money part of it. Accounting is money in the past. Finance is money in the future. So this is about, like, how much money you need to make to do a certain thing. Can you get paid this way? Stuff like that, right? So just some basic understanding of finance. These are the absolute important things. So the systems of creating, communicating, and sustaining value, the 3 foundational pillars. Competence across all 3 is essential for any venture, regardless of size. So I don't care if you're a one-person company. I don't care if you're like a company of 500 employees, bringing in like $1 million a week. You need to have command of these 3 things. The person in charge has to know these 3 things very, very, very well. Okay, so to me, that's the entrepreneurial mindset, is this stuff. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. I'd like to open it up for questions. I see there's 25 people here. You guys are awesome. Thank you for listening through my, weird, scattered, boring sermon here. And let me know what you guys are wondering about, and what you're trying to do, or where you are on this journey, if you're just curious about it, or you're actually wanting to pull the trigger on this and go your own way, work for yourself. Let me know. Now, while I'm waiting for questions to roll on in, I'd just like to remind everyone, if you're looking for a way to learn business, check out that course, the $100 MBA. That's a course I created. For what it's worth, I have an MBA. And this is the best bang for the buck around. Okay, if you want to learn business, this is the best way to do it, because what you're getting is, like, for $100, okay, not 100,000, 100, you're essentially getting a reading list of world-class textbooks that they use in universities, in places like Harvard Business School and their MBA program. All those different subjects I was talking about earlier, things like marketing, accounting, finance, economics, all that stuff. You're getting the textbooks that they use in university to teach you this stuff in business school. So you're just reading it. You're reading the same source material. And what I do is I provide you the reading list, and then I provide a ton of videos where I guide you through the whole process. Now, the reason why I decided to offer this is because of flexibility. You don't have to go back to school for 2 years. You don't have to pay 5 figures to go and learn this stuff if you just want the knowledge. If you're just going into business for yourself, you don't need, like, the fancy piece of paper. You need the knowledge. And so this is a way to get it. It's also super flexible. You can do this entirely on your own schedule, at your own pace. If you're only interested in learning like 1 or 2 of the subject areas, you can. And if you just want like a cursory overview of everything, you don't necessarily want to go super in depth, you could do it that way. You could skim all the material. You don't have to like read these books cover to cover, do all the problems. You don't have to do that. You can if you want to really understand it through and through, but you don't have to. So it's extremely flexible in terms of time and in terms of scope. So if you're looking for that, check out my course, the $100 MBA. There's links in the description box. And I've also done a video where I describe the course in great detail, answer a ton of questions. So it's pretty transparent how it works and what you get. That's also linked below in the description box. Yeah, get in the chat. Let me know if you have any questions. We're talking about entrepreneurship, the entrepreneur mindset. I'm actually holding up okay. I'm actually under the weather. It's that thing where, like, someone in your household gets like a cold or whatever, and the next thing you know, in a couple of days, everybody's got the cold. So that's what I'm going through. Tom Joss says, what is the best and safe investment these days? Well, that's kind of outside the scope of what we're talking about. There is no real answer to that. It's the best and safest investment, I think a lot of people would agree, is something that you know about, that you understand, okay? The other thing is that if you learn things like finance, okay, what you learn is that, the concept of diversifying your risk, okay? That's why when you go to the bank or whatever, and, you put money into the bank, what the bank does is it doesn't just take your money and invest in one thing. It invests in an entire portfolio of things, like many different things. So if you give them, I don't know, $1,000 or whatever, they'll divide that into like little tiny pieces of like maybe $10, and then they'll invest different amounts, maybe $10 each, into 100 different companies. And, some of them will be like low risk, but low return. Some of them will be high risk, high return. So that means like blue chip companies, bonds, things like this. Some will be high risk. Some will be like, startups and things like this, and the idea is that you get essentially the same return, but with a lot less risk. Okay. So that's like, we could get into that financial theory, but that's, I think, all I'm going to say here, because it's kind of outside of the scope of what we're talking about. Magic Bean says, how do you change your mindset to look at the business as a project or an experiment and take it along with your job until it turns into something substantial? What do you think about that? It's hard, because you see, the thing is, if you're a serial entrepreneur and you've built several businesses and you kind of have an idea of the timescales involved, of the amounts of investment involved, that's reasonable to expect certain results at certain times, then you can maybe predict this stuff more precisely. But like a lot of people, if you're just sort of starting something up and you've never done it before, it's very hard to predict and say, like, here's my plan and this is how it's going to go. In 2 months, I'm going to be here. In 3 months, I'm going to be here. I'm going to have made this much money by this time. It's very hard to do that. So, because you're drawing the map as you go, right? So one way to do it is to just sort of be in tune with, your feelings. Like if it's starting to really suck up all your time, or it's starting to feel like it's really a chore, then you are tuned into your own like feelings and stuff enough to say, wait a minute, this is starting to spiral out of control, and I'm not seeing an immediate encouraging payoff on the horizon, or if you're more excited about it, you could say, okay, I'm willing to put in this extra work because I think it will pay off one way or another in the next couple months. You know what I mean? Like it's more psychology than business planning. You can't plan it because you've never done this before. And just because somebody else has done it doesn't mean that you can adapt their template and their schedule and all that to you, because you have different strengths, weaknesses, talents. You're in a different situation from them. So you can't just translate like, okay, here's the schedule that should apply to me. That's what makes it so challenging. This is the idea of going on your own, right? You're off the map, off the grid. There is no plan. There is no guide. There's no rules either. You're deciding what you are going to do, and you're following opportunities that might present themselves. You're dealing with hurdles and roadblocks that might present themselves. So it's very challenging. So the only thing I could say that's helped me is just try and be more in tune with, be self-aware of like, are you happy with the current situation? Are you getting something out of it? Or is it starting to feel bad? A lot of people have a tendency to push through bad feelings because they're working a plan. And what they don't realize is that things are going off the rails. Their personal life is suffering. Maybe it's affecting your day job or, whatever. You have to be in tune with that stuff. So I know that's probably a great non-answer, but that's kind of what I would say to that. Don't be fooled by that traditional thing where, you have to write a business plan, right? Business plan is based on the idea that you can predict. Now, if you've never done anything like this before, you don't know first of all, you don't know how certain things work. Then you don't know what certain things are available. How are you supposed to make a plan with any kind of, validity when there's these huge unknowns? You can't. You just have to sort of play it by ear. You don't even know if you can do this. So it becomes more psychology than like actual business planning. You're welcome, Tom Joss. It wasn't a stupid question. It's just we're not really talking about finance. I mean, I could talk about that stuff, but just not here because people have tuned in for a certain thing. I do a live stream on Fridays where I talk about larger business issues, so we can maybe get into that kind of thing there. The issue I have, so this is somebody says, the issue I have for building a business is that the fact that your ideas could be stolen by the people that you hire. I'm an analyst, but I was able to develop my own bubble mix for kids' parties and stuff. Yeah, that's a common fear, and it's crap. It's like you're not dumb for feeling that way. A lot of people feel that way, but it's smoke and mirrors. That isn't a real concern because the thing is, nobody wants to steal something that is untried. You know what I mean? The only time you have something that you should be guarded about is something that's made you a fortune, and as a result, people recognize that it's of value, right? You see, two kind of principles come into play here. One is kind of a cliche, the other is more hidden. The first principle that's kind of a cliche is that ideas in themselves are not really worth that much. An idea, just that's completely undeveloped, is not worth anything. Maybe I said to you, okay, John, if that's your name, go and start a laser tag facility. Go and get that happening. That's how you're going to make your fortune, right? Now, let's say you actually followed my advice and you learned everything there was to know about laser tag. You figured it all out from scratch. You now own a laser tag place, and you've made fortune. You're like a millionaire, in like 2 years or something. I don't know. Could I then say, well, I own that? It's like, no, I can't. You did all the work. You figured out all the, challenges. You figured out all the solutions. And then on top of it, you actually you executed on it. I've done none of that. Just saying, you should do laser tag. That there's no value in that. You know what I mean? So, you know what I'm saying? And until you make your fortune, nobody's going to think that idea is any good. There's no proof it's any good. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of the first principle, is that like ideas don't matter, right? And I lost my train of thought a bit because I'm sick, but hopefully that makes sense. What was the question again? Stolen. Oh yeah, the stolen thing. I've met people that were like so protective of their like idea that they wouldn't even tell me. They paid me money to consult for them, but then wouldn't even tell me their idea. They expected me to like advise them when I don't know what they're trying to do. And they don't want to tell me because everyone's a risk, because I could steal it from them. It's like, I have no desire to steal your idea. There's no proof that your idea is any good. And in entrepreneurship, especially younger entrepreneurs that don't have a track record of success, failure rate is something like 95% for any idea. So the odds are is that it's not $1 million idea. You know what I mean? So a lot of that is smoke and mirrors. I encourage people just to start. And if you got to tell people what you're doing because you need their help or whatever, you do it. The alternative is total paralysis, where you're afraid to do anything and you'll never get your idea off the ground. Now, you tell me, if the idea is so valuable that you couldn't even get it off the ground, does that make any sense? No. Right? So, listen, I'm talking in terms of generalities, but that's my approach based on what I've seen. Okay, so I would just go for it. Just go for it. Like, let's validate this idea. If you think it's the key to success, that's great. Everybody thinks they've got a $1 million idea. Most people never test it, therefore the idea is worthless. Other people, they do test it, they find out it doesn't work. It's worth zero, right? So I would say go ahead and pull the trigger on it. Don't worry about that stuff. If you're absolutely scared of divulging certain things, find a way to not do it. You could just keep it as a trade secret or something, I suppose. But you've got to really lose that obsession to get something off the ground. It's impossible to do something and not have anyone tipped off to what you're doing. You know what I mean? How are you supposed to get customers if they don't know what you offer or what you do, or you can't answer basic questions about how you deliver the thing that you deliver, Magic Bean says, got it, thanks. Tom Jaw says, do you think AI will make the successful of any business easier? If you're saying, will it be easier to make a successful business? Yes. Every tool that we come out with makes it easier to be successful. The internet was a great tool, that made things easier. Social networking on the internet made things a lot easier. Google, like a search engine that actually worked, that made things easier. And AI is kind of like that. It's like the next sort of latest tool, that we have, right? So same thing. It's a great research tool. It's a great thing to get basic information on. It's not creative. It's not brilliant, but it gives basic information, to basic questions. It's very, very useful. So yes, there's no question. It'll make things easier. But will it solve all problems? No, it won't. It's still going to be more or less the same challenges, right? You have to figure out what you can do that will make money and that, will be personally satisfying for you to a degree that you could stomach doing it, right? That will never change. Magic Bean says, as a young person trying to build something online, is it better to sell to the rich or to sell to the masses? If you sell to the rich, you need a lot of respect, trust, and goodwill. Neither. You can't look at it like that. What you've got to look at it, there are some general principles. And one principle that they found, management scientists found when they were studying businesses across the board, these data-driven studies they've been doing for many, many years, is they found that premium products make more money. That almost seems self-evident, but what that says is that the Walmart approach, competing on price, where I can do something cheaper, right? The goal is to make something cheaper. The idea is that the price goes down, but the quality goes down too, right? What they found was that's, first of all, it's very hard to make that successful. The only people that can do that are people that have huge economies of scale. Right, so the Walmarts of the world and the Amazons of the world might be able to do that. But for you and me, if you're just starting a one-person business, that's not really a winning strategy, all things being equal. What they found was there's a ton of opportunities for delivering premium products, or premium services. So, you're focusing on a particular customer and then you're delivering a very custom solution to them. So like that kind of premium thing. Or you're charging a lot of money, but you're delivering a lot of value. Okay, so you will make more money delivering a higher end product that costs more, but is better. The quality is better than the opposite, than like something that's like just cheap but not very good, right? That's what they found. The companies that really get their quality together, they make money two ways. One, they can keep their price the same as the competitor, but sell greater quantity because people like their product because the quality's better. Or they can raise their prices. So you're selling something better, but it costs more, and you sell the same quantity as your competitor, but you have a higher profit margin, right? So you make more money per unit than your competitor does because you're providing something better, right? So it's like a double whammy. They found that quality actually pays for itself. So if you invest in doing something better, a lot of times people balk at that. They don't want to do that because, that costs me money to try and improve my process. What they find, in case study after case study, and they look at like numbers and stuff out in the real world, is that the quality actually pays for itself within a very short amount of time. So, you don't have to worry about that. So that's kind of the general tendency. So it's not about selling to the rich or selling to the masses. It's about delivering better quality than your competitors that are out there. Okay. Whether you're selling it to the masses or to the rich, you want to sell a premium product. That's the thing to shoot for. That's what will make you more successful, and you'll be more financially successful. Okay, so instead of going into business doing a cheaper version of something and making that lower cost thing available, instead see if you can come up with a better version in some way. Now, the term better has a very, very specific meaning here. It's a metric that I always talk about because this is the holy sort of grail of business in my career. It's something called customer relative perceived quality. Basically, it's very, very simple. What you do is you tell your customers, okay, give me a top 10 list of who's the best supplier of this. So like, for example, if you want to buy, music, just some random thing. What's the best place to go? Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, like I don't know, right? But ask people, give me a top 10 list. Number 1 being the best place to buy, to get music. And 10 being, the 10th best place to get music, right? You want to rank number 1, okay? So obviously, the reason why people would rank something is going to be dependent on many factors. It's going to be the marketing perception, like the image of the company, right? That's kind of something that influences your who do you think is best, right? It's obviously going to be on the details of the product itself. It's going to be based on reliability of the product. It's going to be based on, even things like, how environmentally friendly the product is. Like whatever, you care about, there's going to be multiple things in there. But at the end of the day, you find out which of those matter more by asking customers, rank, which is the best. So if you're going to go into business painting houses, right, and you're trying to attract people in your area of a city, like within a few streets, you want to be the painter that all these people go to when they need painting work. Go to those people, say, who would you rank best? This big painting company, that painting company, Home Depot, or me, or anyone else. Let them rank it, and you want to be number 1. Why? Because you care, and you take the trouble to talk to them, or like whatever it is, you figure out what you need to do, and you get number 1 on that list. And if you can do that, fortune follows. John says, that makes sense. Thanks. You're welcome, John. I'm glad. Magic Bean says, thanks. Like you gave an example last time, someone who wants to buy a barbecue making unit could buy it from Walmart or a company specializing in this kind of product and only this kind of product. Yes, that's called a focus strategy. So Walmart sells barbecues. If you want a generic cheap barbecue, you go to Walmart. But if you want like a good barbecue, something that is maybe customized to exactly what you would want in a barbecue to cook specific foods that you're into, I don't know, you go to a dedicated barbecue store and they focus on you as a customer, and what your barbecue needs are. Whereas Walmart is not doing that. Walmart is trying to sell to every type of customer. They're not really focused on barbecue people, They're an underrepresented group, barbecue people, We need to start taking their feelings into account when we talk about business. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. If you're focusing on those people, you can sell them a product. It won't be as cheap as Walmart, but that doesn't matter because these people, they don't want a cheap barbecue. They want a good barbecue. That's why they come to you. That's what you can deliver. It will cost them more money, but they're fine with that because they're getting something customized to them and of higher quality, right? So that's the focus strategy. So you could look at that in your particular area. Is anybody really serving these particular people? Now, you would also do research. Maybe there is a group of people that you could serve, but maybe there's so little of them that it doesn't really justify going into business doing something because you'll never sell enough to make it worthwhile, right? So that's why you do market research and you learn about this, But yes, you got the principle right. Magic Bean says, having guides, blogs, a better quality, etc., all focused on barbecue making machines and charge a premium for that. Yeah, now if there's a demand for that, right? Like, I don't know, if you say, I'm going to start a blog and I'm going to write a definitive book, like a guide on how to barbecue and, like how to maintain your barbecue machine, how to give it a tune-up, and then we provide that service, are these good ideas? You would have to do research into that. You go and you connect with your audience and you say, like, are you into that? Is that something you would buy? You offer it. You say, hey, okay, I now offer barbecue tune-up services. It costs X. Now, if nobody shows up, that tells you something. If everybody shows up and they say, take my money, yes, that tells you something else, right? So you're doing research, you're probing your market and seeing if these ideas have merit, It shouldn't all be like guesswork. It's the idea is you validate your ideas by going to your market and getting feedback on them. If there's demand, then you deliver on that demand. If there isn't demand, then it's not something you should probably be doing that will make you money. What's the best way to do that kind of market research and check for demand? Amazon reviews, Quora, forums, in person. Okay, well, that's all, or in-person audit. I was going to say, that's all like online stuff. Okay, so what a lot of people do, and this is usually a good approach, is this is where extroverts have introverts beat, okay? I'm an introvert, so I feel the sting of this, okay? Let's say you wanted to start, I don't know, some music type thing. You want to come up with a product, a musical instrument, or like for example, electric guitar. You can buy all the little pedals and things, right? They're like little pieces of electronics that alter the sound, right? So everyone and their brother has started pedal companies in their garage. Here, you could buy my pedal. It makes it sound like this, right? Now anybody can say, okay, I'm an introvert. I'm into electronics. I can build a pedal. Because of the internet, I can now do contract manufacturing. I can get this stuff made. I design it. Somebody else builds it in China or whatever, and then I sell it. Like however you do it. So they take their best guess, and then they say, okay, I think people will like this sound, and they'll be willing to pay this much money for it, and it should work like this. So they take a guess, and then they come out with a product, right? And sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it doesn't. It's very hit and miss. right? And usually it's more miss than hit. That's how an introvert would do it. An extrovert who is a founder, they'd be going to music stores. They'd be talking to the owner of the store. They'd be saying, so, what kind of pedals are you selling these days? What's the hot item? They'd be talking to musicians, like, what kind of sound are you into? And, what sound is there that you want that nobody hasn't been able to really create for you? They're getting that kind of feedback. And if they notice patterns where someone, a lot of musicians say, oh, I'm looking for this, but the choices are not really great. There is a choice, but it's like $5,000. That's out of my price range. I wish there was something cheaper that could do that. You talk to the store owner. The store owner says, yeah, that sound is in high demand right now. Everybody's like tuned into wanting that. So you go, okay, if I could produce something that gives you that sound for like, I don't know, $500, would you buy it? Like that. Could I even get you to commit? If I can produce something that has these specifications, can I get a letter of intent saying that you will carry it, you will, buy like, 10 units from me or something like that, right? So like that's where extroverts have a bit of an advantage because they're out there connecting with their audience. They're speaking to them. They're getting to understand how they think, how they feel, what their tastes are, what they're tuned into and what they're not tuned into, and that really helps you incorporate that into your business decisions, right? So whatever you're doing, try and do more of that. Try and it's not about just going inside yourself and thinking, what do I want to do? It's about going out and saying if you're an enthusiast and you're into this, what needs of yours haven't really been met right now? What would you want to see? And then if you get this answer where everybody says this thing, you're like, okay, if I can deliver on that, that might be something to do. It'll be an easy sell. Seems like the key is to become an extrovert if you want to win today or at least have a higher chance. It's not about today. This is how it's always been. You always sell to customers, and if you don't understand what customers want, it's kind of hard to give them the thing that they're wanting, that they will buy, right? It's always been the same. Now, you can do a certain amount of that stuff online. The thing that I've always advocated was if you go online to some kind of online community where your audience gathers, okay, so maybe like some internet group, like a Reddit, like a subreddit or a Facebook group or like LinkedIn group, I don't know, some place where you get all these people all together, right? And then you put out stuff. You say, hey, I'm now taking orders for this thing that does this pedal that does this sound, it costs this much. If you order early, I'll give you a discount, whatever, right? And if you get, a lot of response, you get people ordering, that obviously is a signal that you stumbled upon a really good idea. There seems to be a lot of demand for that. That's getting a big response. You would then want to investigate that further, right? The other advantage of doing it that way is that if you're taking pre-orders, that means you have money coming in before you've even done anything, right? Just like, Amazon will sell you something. You pay now, and then in a couple of weeks, they send it to you, right? Or whatever, right? So it's the same type of thing. The customers pay their money up front, and then either you're going to return their money to them because you say, oh, I'm sorry, there just wasn't enough demand, so unfortunately I can't do this. Here's your money back. I apologize for any inconvenience. Or there is enough demand and you've got a ton of cash that just landed in your lap. Here's the initial capital outlay to fund creating that thing. So if you're going to create pedals or whatever, this will pay for the inventory. It'll pay for the design, for the first 100 units or, whatever. You don't have to finance it yourself. It's self-financed. People paid in advance, knowing everything's transparent, knowing that, okay, you pay now and then I make it and I send it to you. That's the other advantage. You don't have to invest your own money to get this off the ground. It supports itself. like a Kickstarter, exactly like you're saying there. Same thing. So, so there's a couple of advantages in doing it that way. And if you're an introvert, you're just doing this on social networking. That's one way to do it. The challenge, of course, is finding a place online where all those people congregate that you have access to, that you could just sort of, send messages to them and they'll see it, right? So that's the key. But if you're an extrovert, if you want to go to events, like for example, trade shows, industry events, they will have a couple times a year, they will have consumer electronic shows, they'll have music industry stuff, all the companies are there showing off their latest gear, all their prototypes and stuff like that. You go there. That's where all the competitors are. That's where you can see all your competitors. If they're all doing the same type of pedal, maybe that's a sign that there's something really going on with that particular thing. And you could do the same thing. But all the customers are there. All the enthusiasts are there. All the companies that would buy this stuff, all the music stores, they're all there too. So if you want to get people's opinions about what's going on and see what's going on, that's a great thing to go to. And even as an introvert, it feels good going to those places. You deserve to be there. You're in the industry. You're just there to meet all the other players in it and see what's going on and ask questions to people that are doing various things. It's a really good thing, and it's really not that big of a deal for a lot of introverts. Magic Bean says, naturally we're hesitant about promoting products, especially in forums like Reddit or an online group. It's frowned upon to promote a product. How do you change your mindset about that? I don't know. Listen, I'm not an expert on Reddit. I'm not an expert on Facebook. I mean, I'm just saying that people do this kind of stuff. I don't know all the details of how they do it. But what I'm saying is that that's the kind of thing that you can look for, right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe YouTube is an outlet for that. I'm not sure. You would have to investigate. And or to find new avenues to get traffic to promote your product and get that initial. You see, once again, Magic Beans. Okay, you naturally want very specific answers for this stuff. That's good. That's what you should do. But remember, you're outside of the rules here. There's no guide, there's no central authority, and there's no gatekeepers. So you're very much blazing a trail. So this is where you have to go out and find this stuff, right? Because nobody's going to just guide you to it and say, there it is. Because if they did, they would be doing the same thing you did. That's kind of the flip side of this, right? So I'm telling you, the thing, what it would look like, but I can't tell you, specifically for the thing you're trying to do, all the details, right? Naturally. So you figure that out. Maybe it's something like you connect with people on Reddit or something, but then you do this kind of communication over email. You connect for some reason that's not any kind of issue for Reddit, but then you then do a secondary type of communication, where you're offering something and saying hey, I do this if you're interested. I don't know. I don't know what it would look like, specifically. I'm just saying that people have found ways of doing this, right? Okay, there are 17 people here. Let me know if you have any more questions. If people are wanting me to talk about something, I certainly can. Otherwise, I will wind this down. I'm glad. You're welcome, Magic Beans. I'm glad that you seem to have gotten something out of it. Kripinakel or something says, do you think it's harder to be a successful entrepreneur if I'm from Tunisia? No, I don't. I think it's independent. I mean, obviously Tunisia, or where you are in Tunisia, or the resources you personally have access to, are going to say that it'll be easier to do one thing and harder to do another thing. I mean, but I don't know what those are. You know what I'm saying? If you have people, entrepreneurship is everywhere. People have family businesses. They sell, stuff in markets. They have family businesses for restaurants and, stores and things like this. And, the parent gets the child involved and then the child ends up taking over it. It's very, very common. Tunisia has the same type of economy, as far as I know, than a lot of other countries. It's no harder there. I don't know much about Tunisia. I know the capital city is Tunis. I know it sticks out into the Mediterranean, kind of a peninsula. It's next to Algeria. I mean, other than that, I think it's Algeria and Libya, I think, right? Other than that, I don't really know much about it, so I can't really say. But best of luck. Let me know if you have any questions. While we're waiting for questions, check out that course for $100 MBA. That's the course I created. If you want to learn business, this is the best way to learn it, the best bang for the buck around. You learn everything that you would learn in a brick and mortar MBA, like going to a university, an actual university, and taking a 2-year degree, master's degree in business, a master's of business administration. You can learn everything that you would learn in that degree in my course. For what it's worth, I have an MBA, and the reason I can say this is because you're basically getting a reading list. You're getting a reading list of some of the best textbooks in the world that are used in MBA programs in some of the top schools in the world, especially in the Ivy League schools in the United States, places like Harvard Business School and stuff like that, and Princeton. Their MBA programs, they use these books. So you're reading the same content that they are being taught in university in those places. And the great thing about this is that it's very, very flexible. First of all, you don't have to pay 5 figures or even 6 figures to do this. Secondly, you can do it entirely on your own schedule, and you can go to the depth in which you're interested. Okay, you don't have to go super in depth if that's not your goal. If your goal is just to get a cursory or sort of superficial general understanding of everything, you can skim the material, If you don't care about accounting or finance at all, but you care about marketing, that's fine too. You can just go into 1 or 2 areas. That's fine. It's extremely flexible. And I provide videos that guide you through it. So you're not learning directly from me. I'm not the one teaching you. You're learning from the books. But what I'm doing is I'm talking about, what I think are the more important parts of the books, what are the less important parts, and I'm sharing some stuff from my experience where I've applied some of the principles, and things like this. So I'm kind of the guide, but you're learning it from the source, right? The people that write the definitive books on this stuff. So if that's what you're looking for, it's a good solution for entrepreneur types. You're not trying to impress anyone with a piece of paper, but you want the knowledge. So if that's any use to you, check out that course. There's a link in the description. And I've also made videos on like describing the course, answering questions about it, what you get, how it works. So it's as transparent as possible. So check that out if that aligns with your goals. You want to learn business, and business is the scientific study of how to make money. That's what it is. So obviously knowing it is pretty damn useful on a couple of different levels. Check that out. Okay, we're not getting a ton of questions. I see there's 15 people here. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. I'm going to wind this down. Today we covered the entrepreneurial mindset, the sort of generic definition of it that everybody talks about, and I sort of gave my take on it, what I think it is based on my experience and what I've seen and what I've done. So hopefully that was useful. I'll be doing another episode of Side Hustle Ideas this time next week. So come back if you got any questions about working for yourself, starting your own business, that kind of thing. I can help you. I will be live in an hour, just under an hour. I have a collaborative live stream in an hour with another YouTuber. Her name is Abby. She's from the YouTube channel Life Work Balance. And she's a recruiter. She talks about job search on her channel. So, I talk about job search on this channel. So we get together and we answer your questions, the two of us together in real time. And we've got 2 different perspectives, so it's kind of interesting seeing 2 different takes on a lot of things. So if you're into that, how to get a job and stuff like that, come back in just under an hour, and that's when our live stream is starting. It's called Career Expert Roundtable. Until next week, I'll see you again on Side Hustle Ideas. Take care of yourselves.